All right, welcome to Dreamcatcher Online. We're going to call this DCFS podcast. So, welcome to our podcast. Those of you who are listening, those of you who are watching, we appreciate you. If you're watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe to our channel. And this is a first for us, right? This is pretty awesome to be in a podcast studio and do a podcast. I thought we'd give it a different look and a little bit more casual, a little bit more fun. So, I am here with my beautiful wife, Stephanie Allison, and our EA / my sister-in-law / our sister, Naomi. So I'm actually going to let you guys go ahead and introduce yourself if you can help me out, and let these good folks know who you are.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Allison. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, everyone. My name is Naomi Chi. Thank you for joining us.
Awesome. So you didn't get the memo, huh, to wear the black DCFS shirt?
Nope. I was like, I'm going to go ops all day.
Ops all day? All right. So today we're going to talk, one of the first topics, we're listening to podcasts and we're talking about different things that interest us. But one of the things that I talk about in when people join our team, we do like an orientation or a fast start, what we call a fast start. And there's a slide that I tell the new people that come into our business that we should, there's different movies or films and even books that we should watch or take notes of. And there's a couple of them I want to talk to just to start off our podcast like that, right? So financially, like financial films, what are some of the financial films that you've seen or just movies in general? I was talking to Naomi and I said, what movies do you watch? And what did you tell me?
I was like, I don't really watch movies.
And I was like, that's kind of true. I only know you to watch like cartoons. Not like you're watching cartoons, but because like you have children, right?
Yeah. Sawyer and Zaid.
Yeah. You know what's the cool thing about cartoons, especially like Disney ones or, Pixar? There's always like a message for or a lesson, right? For every cartoon / like Pixar movie, which is pretty cool too. So what's one of your favorites?
I'd have to say, I'm not too sure actually.
You know, Toy Story is coming out, and I always thought Toy Story had really cool messages, and theirs is kind of like the one that's coming out. I know is about technology and how technology is basically killing the toy industry. So,
yeah.
And I saw the preview, and I can't wait to watch that movie. And I'm just like, whoa, this is going to be a good movie where iPads and those kind of things are replacing toys. So I think that I'm excited to see what that's about. So that's going to be a cool movie to watch.
Yeah, I definitely think it would be. The boys are already talking about it. Right now, They're really into Star Wars, so.
Star Wars, my favorite. So one of the conditions of our relationship was to sit Stephanie down, and I said, if we're going to date, you got to watch every single Star Wars movie in chronological order, right?
I know. I was like, okay.
She was like, I don't know if I want to date then.
I didn't really realize what I was committing to when I said okay, because, just that being in love phase and you just willing to do anything for anybody that you really love. And I was like, okay. The only thing that I do know about Star Wars is that every time I try to watch them, I get really confused about the timeline. So as long as you put it into chronological order for me, I'll be able to just follow it along. And you did, which I was really surprised. And we just spent a whole 2 weeks watching Star Wars from beginning to end. And now I love Star Wars. I can admit that I'm a Star Wars nerd.
There's some lessons to learn. And it was funny. I was talking to my brother because he was telling me, he goes, a lot of people are asking about this tariff thing that's happening. This was a year ago or 2 years ago. Remember when Trump launched all the tariffs and how that was causing a lot of controversy and what have you, and financially it was impacting. And my brother says the best way to explain a tariff type situation between nations is watch the Phantom Menace, because the first scene is a tariff confrontation between the separatists and I thought that is a really good way to talk about it. So that's, if you watch The Phantom Menace, the first movie, there's a great Star Wars lesson about how tariffs work. So if you want to know how that works, watch that movie. So anyway, off topic anyway. I was talking about films when it came to financial films. And one of the ones, my favorite, well, let me ask you guys, ask you ladies, what is one of the financial films that you most enjoy, and lessons that I think our audience or just the audience in general could learn from watching the film?
I love The Big Short. I wasn't exposed to that movie until we got into this industry around finance, and it really gives you an overall perspective of how money works in a big picture. Whether money, in that film, it was really about the housing crisis in 2008, and I really feel like that was insight of us being able to kind of look around at what's happening every day and just being aware and paying attention. That was my takeaway. So, you look at what issues are we facing today, or, where are we feeling certain squeezes in our finances. And it really taught me to just be really aware of that when we're working with people and working with money. And it allows me to kind of really go into a household and I look at what they're doing. It really helped me when I watched that movie to really kind of forecast. I guess that's the best word to use, is forecasting the future for families that we sit with. I love that movie, obviously.
Yeah, The Big Short. That's a good one. Ryan that's a star-studded too. Ryan Gosling plays Jarrett. I forget his last name. Steve Carell is a very serious, furious character in that movie. I absolutely love the character he played. He played Steve Baum. Brad Pitt is in that movie too as well. Who's the guy that plays Batman? What was his name? Christian Bale. Christian Bale's in that movie. So it is a star-studded movie. And then the cameos. I love when Anthony Bourdain, I loved Anthony Bourdain, rest in peace to Anthony Bourdain. But when he talks about how a CDO and how he uses fish and a fish stew, that was like, for me, that didn't understand what a CDO was, and how he said, well, what I do is I take fish and nobody buys it. So all I do is cut it up and put it in a stew and I make it a whole new thing. And I thought, he goes, that's what a CDO is. There was these default swaps, they didn't sell, so all the banks and whatever did was just cut it up and then threw it into something called a CDO, and they sold it like that, and now all of a sudden it's considered diversified, and that's what led to the housing crisis of 2008. But he goes, all I did was throw my old fish in a stew, and I'm going to sell it to people, and it's not old fish to them, basically. It's a whole new thing. And I thought, dang, that is a really smart way for somebody who doesn't understand how that worked. And I thought that movie did a fantastic job on how to explain certain things about how the housing crisis affected us. And it did affect us, right, in Indian country. Because do you remember that? Because I think were you a homeowner in 2008?
Yes. I bought a house in 2007, and 2008, the market crashed. And before coming into the industry that we're in, I didn't understand necessarily what happened. But when they use those wood blocks to talk about how, you have A, B, C markets, and you have these types of loans, in the A type of loan, a B loan, a C loan, and it really made sense of what type of loan we had and how it was structured out. And that's the unfortunate part about how, if we don't understand what we're getting ourselves into, we kind of have those parts of life where if there's a market crash, it could really affect us. So, yeah, I felt the market crash in 2008.
That's crazy. I know a lot of our folks did, especially back home, even like I'm thinking about IHS workers, right? And even the people who worked in BIA, BIE, and how the stock market crashed. And my family was affected by that with their retirement plans. At that time, I wasn't, what was I doing? I was still DJing. So in that industry, it wasn't really affected. I think actually it helped my industry because people wanted to escape and party. So the clubs were packed every night during that time. And it was actually a benefit to the industry I was in at that time. But I know it did affect a lot of people when it came to like retirement plans and stuff like that. Even to this day, I think it still affects people because we see clients, right? People that are retiring, they're like, oh, I remember 2008, this is what happened, and it affected me today in 26. I'm like, wow, it's crazy. So anyway, Big Short, great movie. Naomi, we're going to have to watch that movie sometime, have a movie night, and we come in, we're going to put you in front of the TV, and we'll say, watch this movie and take notes. So Great movie. What was another one? We're just talking about Devil Wears Prada, right? Part 1 and 2. I loved part 1. And it's funny because I tell people, I said, like some of my friends and family, I'm like, I cannot wait for Devil Wears Prada. I heard there's a part 2. I can't wait to watch it. People are like, you like that movie? I said, I love that movie. So, and we watched it. What did you guys think about that movie?
I thought it was great. I thought that, well, one of the biggest things, I'm sure you guys know, when they come out with a sequel, that they kind of always mess it up, but not with Devil Wears Prada. I think they like hit it spot on with keeping it, the storyline essentially the same. But I really enjoyed how they put emphasis on, you know, like how times are changing and incorporating that into the movie and being able to, I guess, diversify everything all into a company, like $1 billion company. So,
Yeah. What did you think, Steph, about that?
Oh, I love Devil Wears Prada. I love fashion, especially native fashion. So, I mean, I watch that movie and I think about how everything is created from something and somebody's visual of what they think is visually appealing. And I love all the characters. Miranda's my favorite. She's pretty hardcore. And I think I just find some type of joy in that because it's, you know, we're like natives. It's like a lot of moms. Like they're real tough. They're really straightforward. And I'm like, yeah, Miranda. Like just because she's so straightforward, I love that movie. She's my favorite character, obviously, but and just how she carries herself, her fashion. And I'm like, that lady does not age. So just a lot of different parts, a lot of different takeaways from that movie. But I definitely love the fashion and just being able to dream big and thinking like, hey, I want to go to New York Fashion Week and I want to go do some big things like that. And it definitely makes you dream.
Absolutely. You know, from the Devil Wears Prada too, there were some things that I took away. And I try to do this. Anytime I watch a movie, go to a concert, whatever, there's always a takeaway that I try to get from value that I can get from these movies or whatever I'm watching. And one of them was, and this is, I'm sorry, if you haven't seen the movie, there's going to be spoilers, so to speak. There's going to be a little bit of spoilers that I'm going to talk about right here. So if you want to stop, if you haven't seen that, right now's the time. Give you 5 seconds. Okay, so remember when she goes to visit Emily, and she talks about how she transitioned from the magazine to working for Dior. And she says, a lot of people don't, and maybe I'm misunderstanding this. You can help me out, but she says what we did with Dior and high level or high end fashion is we elevated it so that the market and how we could play the market, it caters to everyday people, so that they can have a portion of what they can't afford, basically something along them lines. Do you remember that? And I was thinking to myself, I remember back in the day. Back in the 2000s when the first Devil Wears Prada came out. Back then, there was companies like Coach and what's another one that's I'm thinking like I used to Christmas shop for my mom and my sister. Nine West was another one. You know, those were considered high end. Well, they still are today, but it was definitely not on the level of Christian Dior's or Louis Vuitton's or Red Bottoms. And that was a really, I took that away. I was like, dang, that's really true how relentless that fashion industry is, that they play almost scientifically to the wants of everyday people when it comes to wanting luxury, high-end fashion. And even us, right, we're kind of a testament to that. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, like it's just a part of everyday life, and it's fun. It's really fun, and that's probably why I enjoy those movies so much, because it just allows us to have that creativity from what we're seeing on that movie.
Awesome. Nigel's my favorite.
What's your favorite quote from Nigel?
My favorite quote's when Andy walks in and he's all, "Look what TJ Maxx brought in." Why is that funny? You know why it's funny? Because we go to TJ Maxx, am I right? A lot of the stuff we buy that we wear comes from TJ. So I'm like, oh. Okay, Nigel, you're taking a shot at me. I get it. So it's all good though.
I know, and then he's taking a shot at me when I'm like, "Can you take me to TJ Maxx?" And then when he says that, I'm like, "Don't take me to TJ Maxx." Like I get all mad.
But we still go to TJ Maxx.
Yeah, I love that place.
Yeah, that was a cool movie. And Miranda, man, at the end, I mean, I love that movie from an entrepreneur aspect because Miranda is relentless, right? She's cutthroat. And at the end, she says, remember when she said something along the lines of, I just love to work. I'm going to work till the day I die. Remember she said something like that? And I thought, dang, that really relentless mindset. And you can't even tell she aged, huh?
Oh no, she looks wonderful in that movie.
Meryl Streep.
Meryl Streep is amazing. She's beautiful.
So I thought that was a really good movie too as well. And it does stay true to the first one, the Devil Wears Prada, the first one. So, and it's a New York movie. I just love New York movies. So what was another one? All right. Another movie that I love is The Founder. Have you seen The Founder?
Oh yeah, it's one of my favorite movies. Ray Kroc is just beast, but at the same time, I feel like in that movie, a lot of people misconstrue how mean he was, for lack of a better word. But I think that he offered a lot of opportunity to be partners, and it's just some people are a certain way and they want their way and they're just stuck in their ways. And I think that was a great movie to just really evaluate, like, hey, sometimes we got to change and sometimes we got to take on opportunity that we don't see ourselves. And that's why we have a team. And that's why we have all these people that care about us that allow us that opportunity to, hey, let's think outside the box and not be so confined to the way we think everything should be.
That is a great point. You haven't seen The Founder, right? So that's another one we're going to have to watch.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen it.
Okay, The Founder is a true story. And in case you haven't seen it, it's about Ray Kroc, the guy who was a visionary for McDonald's back in the 50s. And his story is pretty remarkable. And you're absolutely right, because a lot of people will say, man, Ray Kroc, according to that movie, he was not a good person, or he was not, he was very relentless. But you're right, because I think he was smart. I thought he was a visionary. I thought, like, wow, he was my hero, basically, in that movie. But a lot of people are like, that guy, really? He's kind of slimy. Well, here's the story. You're right, because the McDonald's brothers were stuck in their ways. Mm-hmm. They didn't have no vision. They just wanted to have their one burger stand, and that's it. And they told Ray Kroc, basically, this is it. This is all we want. This is all we need. Why? Because they failed at franchising, right? They opened only 2 stores, one here in Phoenix, and it failed. And they said, that's it. We're done. We don't want to fail again. But Ray Kroc said, you only opened 2. Let's franchise it, and let's see how big this can get. Let's expand this, the McDonald's franchise, because he saw something that they didn't even see. And that was the power of the system, right? So when you're an entrepreneur, the power of systems, and that's what I was like, wow. And I always tell people, McDonald's, I think, has one of the most, if not the most powerful system in history and the world, because it's such a huge industry.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people would think, like from the surface level, when I initially watched it, it took a couple of times of me watching it and kind of, like Jason said, one of the parts of us is we're always finding a takeaway from anything we watch or anything that we digest, including books and movies. Anything that we watch is always a takeaway or what we thought of it. And I think initially I was like, wow, like he stole that whole idea. But then when I watched it again, I'm like, actually, he didn't steal any idea. He tried to improve the ideas and to grow the ideas. It's, it's 2 parties, right? The brothers agreed to work with him and he was working alongside them. But every time he had a new idea, they would shut it down, but they'd almost cut off his legs to be able to improve what he saw as a vision for them. But they weren't thinking long term. And I think, when we're doing anything in life, you're thinking for the next generation and the people behind you, your children. But they were just very the way they are, and they didn't want to look forward to the future of, hey, when we're gone, what is this still going to be? And they had an amazing system, an amazing platform. They just didn't know how to work it because they didn't want to partner with the right people. And you just seen all these characters throughout the movie too, like the guy that talked about how to lease land and put the McDonald's on that lease land. So that's what they really own is land. It's not McDonald's per se or the food. Yes, that's what they serve, but they also own assets like land. So again, we just really nerd out when we watch movies and we start thinking about it in our perspective and what we do as a business. So it's really fun when we watch movies, and we always encourage everybody on our team, hey, you guys should watch this, and it'll start kind of coming together for you what we do.
Yeah, that scene is awesome when he meets the investor guy or the real estate guy, and the guy says, "I don't think you know what industry you're in. You're not in the burger industry. You're in the real estate industry. So what you need to do." This is a synopsis of what happens. He tells Ray Kroc, he goes, "You need to purchase the land that the McDonald's that the burgers cooked on. Purchase that land and then lease it to the franchisee. That way, you have control of what the franchisees." Can do or not do, because they weren't duplicating it, right? They weren't duplicating the menu. They were wanting to incorporate their own things because they didn't own the land. But once he had the land, then he had control of how they were going to run that system, which was genius, in my opinion. And I'm like, that's why McDonald's is one of the most powerful systems in the planet Earth, basically. And this is the myth that I've heard, and I tell people this. And is it true? Maybe not. And I love myths. And sometimes I don't fact check just because I love the idea of myths. And one of the myths about McDonald's is that they don't serve onion rings. Why? Why do they not serve onion rings? Because there's not enough onions on planet Earth to supply them. Isn't that crazy?
But they have enough fries.
I guess there's enough potatoes out there that, you ever been to Idaho? I'm pretty sure there's enough fries. So. The other one is like, is there not enough cows? No. Yeah. Anyway, we'll get to that. Okay. All right. The Founder, great movie. It was another entrepreneur. I use that movie as a reference to systems because of the Speedy system. Remember that scene where they're all putting it together? This is where we do it. 2 shots of pickles, burgers, fries, soft drinks. That's it. That's our menu. And then even in our business, it's really like simple. It's duplication. You fast start, orientate somebody, get them licensed, field train, and then repeat, and then do the same thing over and over. It's just the same thing, the system. We don't want to try to get fancy with it, and the systems are old. They're tested. They're proven. So that's one of the movies that I really love was The Founder. What about The Pursuit of Happiness? You ever seen that movie?
Oh, yeah. Have you watched that?
Yeah, I've seen that one. That one's a really good movie.
What was your biggest takeaway with that movie?
For the biggest takeaway, I'd have to say, as a parent myself, like you would do anything for your child and you would go to the ends of everything, and the boys are growing with me while I stepped into this industry. So I think that was my takeaway. You and Jason always talk about you're a different person each time you watch or you think or you read about something. And talking about Pursuit of Happiness now, like I feel like it goes hand in hand with who I am today, because Sawyer and Zayde are growing with me, and there's the days that like the struggle is real, but that was my biggest takeaway. And you do anything, and being an entrepreneur now, you have to keep pushing. You have to keep like grinding. You have to every day, like you can't give up, because there's someone watching you, whether that's your children, your family, or just like people, your haters. So, yeah, I think that's my biggest takeaway. And for me, it hits a little bit more for me because I'm a single mom. Mm-hmm. So that's my takeaway as of now. But before I was like, wow, like our mom,
yeah,
she worked day in, day out. I remember her always being at work and never giving up. With 6 kids, he had 1.
Yeah, that's a good point to make. I love that your takeaway is what type of parent he was, and he just didn't give up on his child and his dreams. But there was some hard moments, and as your sister and your brother, I think that some of the parts that were like, like, don't discipline them so hard, right? Like, and you see that discipline in there when he's like, you got to be tough when you grow up. And that's what a parent does, is they kind of incorporate those values. And I think of, how that movie, what you shared about being a parent, you just don't give up. And there's really challenging days and days that you're like, how am I going to make the next month's rent? And how am I going to be able to pay for the car? And, there's all of these challenges in that movie as a parent. That's a great point. I never saw it from that perspective. I saw it from my perspective of, don't give up on your dreams, and you're going to find a way, but also, to hear it from a parent perspective of you have no choice. If you want to make it, you want to make it for your children, and they're your why. You want better for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Pursuit of Happiness, when I first watched it, I wasn't an entrepreneur yet, so to speak. And I remember thinking, you're crazy that you're taking an internship that doesn't pay you anything. Because remember, he was like, I didn't know it was internship and I'm not going to get any salary for 6 months. And I'm not even guaranteed a job. All you're going to, it's based on competition of one person gets selected out of a group of like 100. And he's like, I'm still going to do it. And I'm like, you're crazy. But that was my mindset then. And he was like, I'm going to do it no matter what. And it's a great movie that showcases the grind and grit of, one, being an entrepreneur, and two, of the financial service industry, because he's studying, right, to get his license to do, to be a stockbroker while he was field training, right? So he was in the office field training while he was studying to do his license. And those scenes where he's in the homeless shelter and he has his book, because back then they didn't have all the technology. He had his book, and it was a really thick book where he was studying to get his, I think it's Series 7, right? Mm-hmm. And he's in there in the homeless shelter, and then he's trying to hustle his outdated products of the medical thing that he was selling, that big thing. A lot of great points in that movie, and how he prospected, right? Remember, he went to the football game, just out of the blue, prospected the top tier guy, became friends with him, took him to the football game, and then he networked with all the different brokers. And then at the end, while he was studying, he did his referrals, basically. And then he got all those people to become clients of the businesses. That's what shot him up to get selected to be the broker. Chris Gardner, big shout outs, because that's a really inspiring story, all while homeless and trying to take care of his son. And at the end of the movie, it is a feel-good movie, but man, you're in the grind with him. That movie does a great job. And it's a true story. Chris Gardner is a real guy. And it really did take place, I think, in the 80s in San Francisco. So Pursuit of Happiness, it's a good movie too as well. So
definitely. I love that, again, there's a system in that of how, anything that we start, whether it's school, whether it's a new job, whether it's entrepreneurship, there's a starting point. And I think what technology has done such a great job of is selling us something that is like, you can have it overnight, or you can do it overnight. But the reality of it is, when you start anything, there's going to be a grind. There's going to be some hard parts, hardships in that. And if you want to make it to that success point that you visually see. But in that movie, I love that it gives you the grind, and it gives you the heartache, and it gives you the success. And that's a great movie. And we tie that into our business a lot. And we always encourage our team to watch that movie, because, and we don't watch it just once. We're always asking our team, hey, watch it again. What was your takeaway this time? And you just, like, now that Naomi gave us her perspective as a parent, like, looking at it from that point, that's a great point to make, because there's so many perspectives on this, and there's so many parts of that movie of, like, hey, it's a feel good movie, but it also shows us I guess we relate to it really well.
What was your favorite scene, Pursuit of Happiness?
Honestly, because we've built the business that we have from nothing, I love the parts of there's an exchange for everything. And mine is, Oh my gosh, the worst days in what we do. I love the scene where it's like a bad scene too, where he gets hit by the car and he's supposed to be, he has this big opportunity and he's lost his shoe and like it's just the worst possible thing that could happen to him. And then, but he still shows up and he still does what his dream, he could have had all the excuses. I just got hit by a car or I lost my shoe, but he's like limping into that meeting and not having an excuse and showing up regardless of what happened. And I love that scene because, in our business, there's a lot of points when you get beat up, but it's about still showing up and about, if you really care for something, it doesn't matter. Like sometimes, how you look or how you show up, it just matters that you show up. And that's my favorite part, even though it's kind of rough where he gets hit by a car and all these things. But I just think there's so many times when something great is about to happen in life. And there's those parts of it's not going to be given to you that easy. And when you work past it, it does happen.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. At the end, remember, because when he goes into his interview, he just got out of jail.
Yeah.
Because he didn't pay parking tickets. And then he goes to his interview and he's wearing his tank top shirt and his jacket. He's all covered with paint. And the guy's like, what would you say if somebody came into my office dressed the way you were, not wearing a shirt? Then he says, I would probably say he probably had on a really nice pair of pants. And then he just made everybody laugh, right? And they gave him a chance. And he went through all of the struggles, homeless, staying in the bathroom at a subway station with his son. I mean, all that grind, studying for his tests, getting hit by a car. Then at the end, they bring him in. I might get choked up here because that's such a powerful scene. Remember, the boss says, what did you think? And he goes, I thought I'd wear a shirt today. And then the boss says, well, wear one tomorrow.
Yeah.
If you want to be a stockbroker here. And that's when he knew he got the job.
Mm-hmm.
Woo! It gives me chills just thinking about that. And I was like, wow, all that. He goes, was it as easy as it looks? And then Chris Gardner's crying. He goes, nope. And I'm like, that is so true. Because in our story, we can relate. Because when me and Stephanie first got married, those are a lot of you that don't know, we were homeless, right? We stayed in the car. We slept in the car. We slept in parking lots while we were building this Dreamcatcher brand and building our. Right here in Scottsdale, there was that Motel 6, super sketchy, by the way. But that's, it's Scottsdale, but it's still some sketchy parts of Scottsdale. But anyway, we were there, and remember, we were there for about 5 weeks, just staying in that hotel, trying to work on our dream. And so it is very relatable, the struggle and the grind, because we've gone through some of that. So Pursuit of Happiness, great movie, true story, true grit. Well, in the last one, classic. Martin Scorsese, Leonardo DiCaprio, right? Jonah Hill, The Wolf of Wall Street. What about that movie? That one is one of my favorites. What was it? Well, I always tell our team, watch this movie because it does have a lot of truths about the financial service industry, but don't watch it with your kids. And don't watch it with grandma, because one time I had that movie playing and my grandma was there and she was like in Navajo, what are you watching? Like, it was crazy. So what is your take? Wolf of Wall Street? Have you seen that one, Naomi?
Yeah, I've seen that one. It's been quite some time since I've seen it. I kind of seen it when it first came out, but it was definitely like, I guess, a culture shock because, like, it's like, whoa, is that how, like, rich people are? Like, they work, and then, like, they just kind of lose themselves. And then just seeing, like, being an entrepreneur now, like, I'm like, okay, so it is possible, but you just got to be careful with where you go with it and know when enough is enough. Mm-hmm. And I was just, being in the financial industry now, like, I have a tough time, like, being extroverted. So I think if I would watch it again, I would definitely have a lot more takeaways as far as, like, being a financial professional now. But yeah, I think one of my biggest takeaways looking back, I'm like, you work so hard just for it to get stripped away. And at any point, it's possible with anything in life. I think that's something that I took away from watching it, but definitely recommend not watching it with children.
Yeah, for sure. So, in case you haven't seen Wolf of Wall Street, what she's talking about is, there was the come up, and then when it got taken away, it was because they were doing illegal things, and they got caught, basically. And Jordan Belfort, true story, too, Jordan Belfort. I was just listening to a podcast with him and Ed Milet recently, so good stuff. What about you? Like, Stephanie, you watch Wolf of Wall Street, right?
Yeah. Again, when you watch movies over and over and you just kind of watch it during the time of your, the points in your life. I remember what Naomi's talking about where I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much access. Is that how they live? But today when I watch it, I look at how a lot of what they do in the financial world, we do, and where, the good parts of that movie, right? So the scripts. Like there's a script, and this is how we call people and how we make sure we have that customer service. We're having an interaction. And then there's a way, that you look at the parts of, the good parts of how there's opportunity almost in everything, but it's how you handle it and what you do with it. Again, there's a lot of naughty parts, but there are parts of, there's systems in everything. And to be honest, that movie where, like, for me, I'm like, whoa, like, look at how big that team is that he's in front of. And, kind of makes you think of, like having a vision for where we're going and having a huge team like that that's just going to do anything that they can to get where they want to go, but also in the right way help people. So there's, like, again, a lot of naughty parts, but I always try to look at everything from a nice lens when it comes to what I'm watching or what I'm digesting. Like there are the parts, and those are important to keep in mind as you use those little takeaways. But I love those parts too, like just the team. There's a system, there's scripts, there's a team around you that has, that are leaders that are gonna support what you do, and you're in the field with them, and they're working to be just like you. And yeah, there's so many good parts for me in that movie that I really enjoy.
Absolutely. What was your favorite part?
My favorite part?
How about you, Omi? Well, Stephanie thinks about it.
I think my favorite part when Steph was talking about the script, when Jordan is like talking, and right when they're in I forget where they gave him a chance, and he's on the phone, and everyone's just like watching him talk. And he's like selling, and then all of their faces, and then everyone's like slowly turning. And then someone's like writing down notes, and they're like, "How did you do that? What the heck?" And I'm like, every time I see you and Steph, sometimes I'm always like, I feel like that's me. Especially, like when I first seen you guys actually like do the business as far as like appointments and whatnot, and I was able to learn and sit in and all of that. I'm like, was that how I looked? That was my favorite part though, because they're just like, just all in awe and just like shocked, and he's looking at them like, what? Like it's hard.
And that we were at that point, right, Steph? We were at that point where what Omi's talking about, where we were watching our mentor close, and us being like,
it's like magic.
What?
Like, whoa, it does work. So my favorite part, to answer your question, is that it doesn't matter what kind of teammate we can get and who's going to be around us. Like anybody could do what we do. Now, those are my favorite parts, where you kind of see the different personalities of this team, where you're like, oh my gosh, he's so technical. Or, oh my gosh, like he's too like action, or there's different parts of, this team that he has, but he builds a really great team out of them. Those are my favorite parts, where you're just like, oh my gosh, he's such a nerd, or, and those are funny parts of the movie. But I love that team that he built. Like they all have their own personalities, and he embraces that. And I love those little quirky moments of what that team is.
I know, like Kimmy, remember Kimmy?
Yeah.
Kimmy is the blonde lady that he gave a chance to. Remember, he gives that speech. I wrote her $25,000, but she's really relentless. Remember, she was all giving Steve Madden crap and saying mean stuff to him. And I love Kimmy. Like the side characters are really fun. God, that movie has so many parts that I love. I love that one when he goes and uses his script. I love his recruiting part because, we're in a recruiting business. And he goes, these guys didn't even finish high school, some of them. And there was Chester Ming who sold tires and weed. And then there was this person who sold anything he could get his hands on, mostly weed. And then this other person, all these people. And he goes, this guy didn't even finish college. But, then he talks about his team and how he goes, but if I could teach them how to use the script and how to sell, we're gonna become a successful business basically, and that's what they did. So I love the recruiting scene and how they're all at lunch, and he's all, sell me this pen, which was really cool too. That's a iconic line, and from what I understand, that was actually not in the actual real movie. It was later added at the end of filming, because from what I've seen, Martin Scorsese, the guy who made the movie, interviewed the real Jordan Belfort after he got out of jail. And Jordan was just fresh out of jail, and he gave him the story. He goes, okay, how we're going to end the movie is you're going to be going to prison, and that's how it's going to be. Then he went back, and he said, this is the movie, and he showed Jordan Belfort, but he goes, okay, well, meet me in this wherever, this gig that I have. And Martin Scorsese went over there, and he saw Jordan talking in front of thousands of people about how to sell. And then somebody came up to him, and then he went up on stage and he said, sell me this pen. So then he asked Jordan, what is it you're doing now? From the last time I seen you, you were just fresh out of jail. And now you're talking in front of all these people? He goes, yeah, that's what I do now. I do trainings on how to sell. And Martin was like, Martin Scorsese, like I all know him, Martin. Anyway, Martin Scorsese said, we gotta put that in the movie. Because people like you are relentless. People like you don't fail at anything you do. So even though he went through all of that, he still made a life after the debacle with the stock brokerage. Now he makes a living doing sales training and makes millions of dollars doing that. And Martin Scorsese said, we got to put that in the movie and end it that way. So very cool movie, guys. Wolf of Wall Street, one of my favorites. Out of all of them, which one was your favorite? Pursuit of Happiness, Founder, Devil Wears Prada,
The Big Short.
The Big Short.
I'm so loyal to that movie. I love that movie. And Christian Bale, he's my favorite character in that. If you watch it, just pay attention to how he is. And a lot of people wouldn't get it, but he's my favorite character because of what he does. And he's pretty savage in what he does, but also really intelligent in what he does.
I'd have to say, out of all of them, Pursuit of Happiness, just because of where I am in this business. Like, I am like, okay, we got to keep working, work, get paid. Work, get paid. Yep. But, being an entrepreneur and thinking of the Pursuit of Happiness, I don't know if you guys seen that meme where it's like the guy with the, I don't know if it's a shovel or what it is or the tool is called, but he's like going, and then there's like the diamonds just right there, and then like turn around or keep going. I think like as an entrepreneur, like I keep that in the back of my head, like, okay, yeah, today was hard, but I got to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. 3 feet from goal. That's a meme you're talking about.
Yeah.
So awesome. All right, guys. So thank you for listening to it. This is actually our first podcast. What a fun one to talk about, right?
What's your favorite movie?
Out of all of them, probably Wolf of Wall Street. I love the Wolf of Wall Street. When I first watched it, I thought, this is crazy. Is this how it really is? Is this how that industry, it's crazy. There's people out there like that. And then now I'm like, wow, it is. First of all, the business part of it, right? He's studying to get his license while he's in field training. He has a mentor, and his mentor is pretty relentless. That's Matthew McConaughey. Remember, he does that. That wasn't supposed to be in the movie too, but oh man, that whole scene too when he's all, it's a fugazi, fairy dust. Remember, he's talking about how financial services is. That's a great scene too. And then he talks about, using scripts and how to make phone calls. Remember, he says those things are worth millions of dollars, but it's useless unless you pick them up and make phone calls. So pick up the phone and start dialing, which is something we have to do when we're getting prospects, right? And then he also talks about recruiting. And he goes, these guys, I can make them and I can train them how to be successful. And then he talks about the sales and then even how he talks to his team, that motivational part. And he says it in a very colorful way with his words, and meaning basically they curse a lot, but and then the downfall, right? And then how it ends, how it picks me up. So Wolf of Wall Street, probably by far, all of them are great movies though. The Founder, Devil Wears Prada, The Big Short's a good one. What's the other one that I'm missing? Pursuit of Happiness and The Wolf of Wall Street. So yeah, that's my favorite one. Thank you for asking. I forgot to tell. So, all right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us on our podcast. If you're listening, thank you. Subscribe, like on YouTube, and I appreciate you. We'll see you guys on the next one. Do you guys want to say any final things?
Go watch a movie and post your takeaways in the chat.
All right. Thank you.